Today I promised you the video about why it's better to buy a second-hand car than a new car, especially today. I'm gonna try to keep the video as short as possible, and as you know, or maybe you don't know, I don't have a script that I read from. I just say whatever I have in my head at the moment I speak. So what I want to say today is comparison between the new cars that go so expensive and so full of technology, and I suspect the warranty is getting less and less efficient. Let's say they give you less years or less mileage or kilometers on the warranty. So it used to be like 200 kilometers, let's say 200,000 kilometers warranty. Now probably is gonna, if you get lucky, you get 150,000, maybe 100,000 of kilometers of warranty, and very rarely you're gonna see cars with more than 5 years. I think Kia offers 7 years, but the rest of them offer between 3, sometimes even 2 years, and at the most 4 or 5 years. So today I'm gonna tell you, let's go with the second-hand car market first. The new one is kind of self-explanatory. I'm going to explain it on the way, but why you should choose and what car you should look for when you go for the second-hand model. And I'm gonna let's start with some examples so we can actually see it. Easy model I can find. Let's say we're going through the Mazda 3 because I think you can find one of those models even in Europe and also in the US market and Canada pretty much very easily. And the one I choose, usually it's a bit older than everybody expect. We're gonna go with the hatchback, and I'm gonna start with the first generation now, between 2003 and 2006. It doesn't have to be exactly this model, it doesn't have to be exactly this car, but you're gonna have some idea with when we're going with this. So first of all, you have to choose the engine. In America, probably you don't care how much the displacement of the engine is because you have the cheap gas and not that many taxes. But in Europe, it's gonna be some problem, especially in say in the European Union. And we don't go here from what the pollution it does, if you have a tax of pollution or how much the car pollutes. You're gonna go exactly strictly on the car. It's gonna differ between let's say countries and continents. Even if you can find this car in Australia or New Zealand, but there is gonna be a different market and different rules there, but they might apply. First of all, what I look, it's about a 4-cylinder car. A Japanese 4-cylinder always reliable and cheap to run. Now what I'm gonna go for, especially with this model, I don't think they have a turbocharged model. You should avoid that. One thing that you avoid if you buy a second-hand car, and especially an old car, it's a turbocharged engine. Because you add that turbocharger, yes, it's gonna feel much faster, you're gonna have much torque, you're gonna feel it like it's much more zippy and quick car, but especially with old age, that turbocharger is gonna fail most likely in your ownership. So it's gonna be at least $1,000 or €1,000 to repair one of those. So immediately you're gonna regret purchasing that car, and especially if you live in an area we don't find that easy the part, you're gonna have to wait a bit for that part. Let's go with the most basic engine, that because you buy the most basic engine, usually is gonna be the cheapest car, let's say, listed on your second-hand website of the market that you live in, the country. We're not gonna talk about another design or what you should buy at the body style of the car. You're gonna looking pretty much inside of them, how they use it, and this is gonna apply for a lot of cars. So what you should look when you buy a second hand, especially an old one, if you live in Europe, if you have, let's say, Euro 4 or less than that, I think it's a bit harder to find, but Euro 4, Euro 5 and 6, usually they're not that much difference when you pollute with them, but there's gonna be a big difference between countries if you have some tax on them. In America, I don't think that is a much big of the issue. But why they say Euro 4? Why? Because when they switch for Euro 4 to Euro 5 to meet the Euro 5 standards, and I think Euro 5 in Europe was in 2009, 2010, they introduced it, especially in the car you can buy brand new. You're gonna have much more electronics. You're gonna have much more things that can go wrong, that can break in the car. So this is a very easy way to avoid that, because they're gonna make it much more expensive to fix the car, and also the parts itself is gonna be more expensive. So when you buy the car, you should go for at the most, let's say, at Euro 3 I don't think you can find that, but in US it's gonna be, and it's not gonna be a problem I think. But Euro 4, it's in my opinion the sweet spot, especially if you buy a petrol car. I'm not gonna talk about that much about the diesel cars, especially because in US market it's pretty much zero, and in European one, especially as a second-hand car, it's kind of, you have much more things to worry about. They're gonna have a turbocharge, they're gonna have a GDI injection, a direct injection that gonna break, and it's, if one of those things goes bad, you're gonna spend a lot of money. So we're gonna talk about the petrol car, and especially like I say, around Euro 4, no more than that. Now when you buy a second-hand car, obviously you're not gonna have too much to expect. I mean, look at this, 0 to 60 or 0 to 60 miles per hour is like 13.6 and 14.3 seconds. It's not gonna be a fast car. We're talking here about a second hand that's gonna be cheap to run and cheap to fix. That's the most important things, because you're gonna hear people like the old car used to be much better than the new one. No, that's in my opinion, that's a myth. The old car, it was easier to fix than the new one, but the new one are more reliable than the old one all day long. And that's the thing with the Euro 4 and car made between, let's say, 2003, 2004 and 2009, 2010, they are in that sweet spot. They are easy to fix enough so you can fix it in your garage, and also they are cheap and very reliable in my opinion. That's why I think that is a sweet spot, especially if you buy the first car, and it's gonna help you a lot because it's gonna be easy to fix, so you can fix a lot of things. If you go bad on yourself, you're gonna have a very well understanding of the how cars are made. If you don't have to be that much passionate about those cars or any cars, but you're gonna understand how much what you look for the next car. Even if you buy a new car, that's also a very important thing. You buy a new car, you're gonna know what to look for, and also you're gonna save you a lot of money and time, because you can buy a new car that you say, okay, I have a warranty, I don't care about anything. But if something in the first, let's say, 6 months goes bad, and the dealership is gonna say, okay, we can fix that on a warranty, no problem, but it's gonna take like 3-6 months, that's a problem. So you can avoid that by choosing the good car in the first place. So what I'm looking at here, the engine is pretty much the biggest problem you can have in the car. You have to go for the natural aspirated engine, so no turbocharging. And at this price, we can talk about like cheap cars. There is no such a thing as cheap cars, I think, with a supercharger. That's a whole other discussion. So you should avoid any superchargers and turbochargers car. It's a petrol car, you don't need it. It's your first car. You have to have something that's easy to fix and good enough. The second one I'm trying to avoid, it's like I said, multi-port manifold injections. That means you don't have the direct injection. When you don't have the direct injections, it means the injector itself are much cheaper. If something goes bad with them, they are much easier to fix. If you want to fix those, you have already in the car. You don't have to buy, let's say, new injectors. You can pretty much clean them much easier and much cheaper than if you have a direct injection that they work and so much pressure, so much higher pressure than the multi-port one. And also you're gonna have less parts with them. Direct injection works at that high pressure because they're gonna have a second high pressure pump, and that if that pump is going bad, it's gonna be easy, especially if you want to replace it with a new pump. It's gonna be at least like $1,000, €1,000 the pump, and plus labor. So it's not worth it. So avoid that as much as you can. Also, if you have if you want to have a car that consumes less fuel, it's gonna look at the weight. The heavier it is the car, the more it's gonna consume. That's self-explanatory. And another thing you can use. Okay, in America, that's a problem because pretty much I think like 90%, 95% of the car are automatic. In Europe, especially with those old cars, again 95% is gonna be manual. If you go for the manual gearbox, you already save you a lot of trouble. If you go with the same America, you're in a US market, make sure that the car you want to buy have already a good automatic gearbox, so it doesn't have a problem from the factory. Is not known to have that problem with the gearbox. So you have to look into that and make sure the model you want to buy with the engine you want to buy doesn't have any problem with that gearbox. And if it does, I would skip entire car from the start. I mean, it's not worth it. I mean, probably if you want to fix one of those gearbox, it's gonna cost you $2,000-3,000 even more $1,000 to fix one of those. So it's not worth it. Probably it's gonna already be more expensive than the car itself. So you're gonna throw the car away. If you can buy a manual, especially even in US, you're gonna save you a lot of money and a lot of trouble. You're gonna avoid that. With a manual gearbox, the worst that can happen, you have to replace the clutch. But if you go when you buy the car and check it, I mean, you could let's say you put it in a first or second gear, you are at 2000 RPM, and then you floor the pedal, and the engine goes faster than actually you're supposed to move the car, and it just revs in continue, and the car doesn't move that fast. That means you need a new clutch. So it's easy to see when you buy the car if you need or not a new clutch. And if it goes bad along the way, it's, I don't know, a clutch probably is going to be like $200-300 or euros, and you can fix it. It's a bit more expensive to, let's say, to pay for the label, but you can fix it yourself if you have, let's say, a medium knowledge about this fixing. But you can find a lot of videos on YouTube how to fix it. Hopefully you're not gonna need it. It's not that simple. It's not like an oil change or brake pads, but it's way cheaper to fix than something goes back with an automatic gearbox. Another one that I look, it's suspension. Okay, the front suspension, the rear suspension. The rear suspension, if it's independent suspension, is gonna be more expensive to fix, and usually those things, doesn't matter what car you have, they usually go bad with the old age. So you have a simple suspension, a beam bar, I think they can call it a bar that goes across the wheels. That's gonna be my favorite choice, because you have like, I think like 2 bushings or something. It pretty much, it never breaks, one of those type of suspension. So you're gonna be much more happier with that. So the rear suspension, it should be, again, doesn't have that much comfort and not gonna feel that much sporty, but we're talking about cheap cars, not performance cars here. So that's gonna be, again, my choice here. Then the tires. You should choose a car that have something like this, 195/65 by 15 diameter of the wheel. Those, especially in Europe, those are probably one of the most used tires in the car industries. So you're gonna find it anywhere, and you're gonna be cheap. So especially if you buy a car that doesn't have that great tires, it's gonna probably, you need the 4 tires with this dimension. It should not cost more than €200-300 or dollars for a set that's very, very good. So 4 tires for 300, you're gonna be very well with them. So the reason why people go in trouble with buying second-hand cars, it's one, they don't know how to fix it, which, again, some basic things you can do easy by yourself and save a lot of money. You can change your oil, you can change pretty much all the filters in the car, so you can save the money. You can change your brake pads, that's also gonna save a lot of money. If you have, let's say, some small problems with window wipers, again, easy to fix, easy to change. If you have a bulb light that's go bad, easy to fix. If you have, let's say, a big more technical problems, let's say one of the fuse blows up, you can look on the internet and find it very easy to fix. Especially with those old cars, like I said, from, let's say, this one from 2003, they don't have that much technology in them. There are not that many things to break with them, so that's why it's gonna be a very safe, the most safest purchase I can find on the market, regardless where you live. Another thing I want to talk about, and people don't talk about enough, in my opinion, is when you choose the car to buy, you have to look at the country that you live. Because if you, let's say, let's put a car, let's say, let's take this Mazda. Mazda usually very reliable, but let's put them against one that is much more reliable. Let's say a Toyota or a Honda. One of them, the Toyota or the Honda, it is more reliable. It's more it's a better buy from the start. But if you live in a country that in the past, let's say the people didn't buy that many, or they buy enough of those cars, but the market price it's so high. Let's say this Mazda you can buy for $1,000 and a Toyota you can buy for $3,000. It's already a lot of difference that you can buy another two cars for the difference of the money. So in my opinion, when people say, okay, you're gonna buy the Toyota, but the Toyota it's already old. Okay, I get it, you can make a lot of mileage with them with pretty much no problem. But if something goes bad and it happens to be you, usually parts from those cars as Toyota or Honda, they are much more expensive because people usually treat them like they are reliable cars, and they don't worry about sometimes not even changing that often the oil, and don't take care of them very well, and they then sell it and you buy them and all the problems happen to you. That's a big problem. So you have to look at about those functions, because you want to buy a car that don't have the problem with them. You don't need to buy the most reliable car that you can find. Sometimes you can buy a car like this, let's say a Mazda, check the car, there is no problem with them, and then if something goes bad, let's say your budget was $3,000, you have $2,000 on the side in case something goes wrong with the car. So that's another thing in my opinion. Then the next one is like, okay, you buy the Mazda and then you buy the Toyota, or let's say you buy the Toyota first. If you have a small accident with that, I can assure you, because usually with car like that, let's say with a Toyota, for example, especially in Europe, the parts are more expensive. If I want to buy a headlight, it's gonna be probably twice more expensive than this Mazda. So you have to look at that, because the car could be reliable, but you can have some problem down the line that you didn't expect, like a small accidents, or you can find the car, I don't know, like I say, a tail light or a headlight just crack in a parking lot, and you have to fix it. There is no one you can blame or claim from their insurance. So that's another thing that you should look for. And also, like I say, if in your country, let's say some other brand of the cars, let's say we are still in Europe, let's say with Renault. This is just an example. Like I said, you can apply it from whatever you want. Let's say this Clio from, let's look a good one. Let's say from 2003 again, with 2003, one of those. And in your country, let's say they sell a lot of those cars. Again, if you get a crash or something, you can go to the junkyard and buy this headlight much easier, or buy the fender for exact same color. You don't have to paint it on anything. Or a bumper. It's gonna run you much cheaper than like I said, than a Toyota, like, or a Honda, that you cannot find that many parts, and when you find them, they are much more expensive. So that's the most important thing I think you have to look for, because like I said, we're talking about cheap cars. What types of car you find on the street in your country at the most, and they are good enough, reliable enough, cheap enough, and easy to fix and easy to maintain also. That's one thing I want to look in them. And then with the new cars, that's a problem with those new ones, because you're gonna buy a new car in the first 3 or 5 years. Probably the depreciation for those 3-5 years is gonna be more than you buy the car, or a second-hand car, and then use it for those 3-5 years. So you already lose the money with the new car, if you can afford it, because the new cars are so expensive. And then when you resell the car, like I said, it's gonna be much less value there. And also for those, when you have the warranty, the new car, you have to go to the dealership to make those services, and it's gonna cost you pretty much, I don't know, 3-5 times more than you did it yourself as a second-hand car. So that's one of those important things, like I say. And try to avoid the German cars when you buy a second-hand car, like Audi or a BMW. Mercedes, it's out of the question, because we already talked about big cheap cars, especially Volkswagen. Try to avoid it unless you buy, let's say we're going with a Golf, and again, it's a Golf that is made, until Euro 5. So you're gonna have like let's say this one, 2003 to 2005, 6, whatever it is. But again, you go with the engine that is cheap to run. Let's say the biggest engine that FSI, it's a direct injection engine, you should avoid it. But this 1.6, I think it's it's a multi-port injection, which is much cheaper. It's naturally aspirated, so you don't have turbochargers, anything. But I think they still have some problem with electronics on this one, and the parts are not that cheap. So I kind of stay away even from these models. The safest one probably is gonna be like a one made the last century, because the new one, like I say, if I make the Volkswagen video, anything that they build this century, I will not take a risk with them. And especially if you live in Europe, with Volkswagen, Seat, Skoda are pretty much made by the same company, and I will not take the risk with them. If you live in, like I say, in US, you have the other manufacturer like Jeep. I think it's a Chrysler product. Not that many let's say trust in those brands recently. They don't make that great cars. But if you can find a Honda Civic in America, I think they sell a lot of them. A cheap Civic, even a cheap Corolla from Toyota. If it's cheap enough and you can find parts in your area and they don't cost that much, that's why you should go for the cost. It could be and a car actually when inspected is very good. That probably is going to be the safest bet you can find. But also you can go with a Kia that I like, a Kia Ceed. Let's say the first generation one with let's say some very basic engine. The basic one I think is this one. Again, it's in a petrol car, but this one I think it's a manual. Yeah, it's a 5-speed manual. I like those suspensions, those gearbox, the 5-speed. It's a pretty nice car in my opinion, and like I say, it have a natural aspirated engine. You have the multi-port, no GDI injections. When you buy one of those cars, you already start great. And if the car was taking care of them and don't have that many mileage, and you go to inspect the car and everything looks good, and the country that you live, they sell a lot of them. You can see it on the road, or you can see them on the junkyard, and they sell, like I say, cheap. You can buy one of those, let's say, hopefully for $1,000-$2,000. And if something goes really bad, let's say, you can buy another one with no papers for $500 or $1,000. You can basically have two cars, and you can take parts from the donor one, from the bad one, to put them in your car. But for that, you need at least let's say some minimum of experience and some minimum of tools to do those jobs. That's why it's better to start with a car that is not that much complicated to fix, because even if you don't know how to fix it, when you go to the mechanics, most likely it's going to give you a lower price, because they know they are easy to fix one of those cars, and probably it's going to give you the car much faster than, they say, you go with the 2022 models. Then it's like a lot of electronics on them. They have to order the parts, they have to wait for them, and it's gonna, like I say, it's gonna save you a lot of problem. And those cars, like I say, they made from 2003 and between 2003 and 2009, let's say, they are actually good cars. The interior are pretty nice. The exterior, it's good enough in my opinion. The comfort of the car is nice. You don't have, let's say, you have the old cars, then you can hear a lot of noise in them. They are genuinely good, very good buys. You can buy one of those with pretty much no problem. That's my video, I think, for this night. If you want to buy a car and the new car market, it's way too expensive, or if you want to buy for your first car, or you want to just start learning about cars and want to make, like I said, you can make those oil changes very easily. You can make brake pads changing very easily, filters, pretty much all the liquids in the car. You can change it. The air condition one, it's a bit tricky. That's a bit different. But if the air conditioner works when you buy the car, and the other, you don't have to worry that much about them. And let's say you want to change the oil, very easy. You can change the air filter, you can change the oil filter. You can change, if you have, let's say, a manual gearbox, you can change the oil from the manual gearbox, but that's going to be very easy. If you have the automatic gearbox, you can change that too. It's going to be more tricky if you don't have the dipstick, but you always gonna find videos on the internet how to do those things, and like I said, it's gonna be much cheaper if you do it yourself than go to the car with the mechanics, or maybe you have a friend that knows a bit about those cars or in general, and you can learn together. Let's say if you didn't work specifically on your model. Like I said, tires can be pretty expensive, have a dimension of the car that pretty much was made for the last, I don't know, 20 years. It's gonna be way cheaper when you buy them. If somebody, like I say, crack your taillights in a parking lot and runs away and you have to fix it, much cheaper to fix with those types of cars than buying a LED, like I say, a model from 2020. I mean, and especially in the fuel economy, let's go with the, let's say, fuel economy combined, you can usually add a liter more than they say here. It's 6.1 per 100 kilometers, probably like a bit like 7 in real life. And the US, we're gonna have like 38 miles per gallon, so it's gonna be like 30 miles per gallon. It is decent. I mean, there are new cars in this class that consume pretty much the same fuel or just a bit more, just a bit less. Let's say they use like not 30 miles per gallon, they have like 26, 28 around that, and you have to pay 10 times more or even 15 times more for the new car. Or even if it's a second-hand car out of warranty from 2020, good luck with that, because it's gonna be much more expensive to fix, and the parts is gonna be pretty much as a new car. So that's why you should avoid those. I think it's a scam buying a almost new car, which is when it's 5 years old, no warranty, and the quality of those cars from the manufacturing goes down year after year. So it's a bad buy, in my opinion. So if you have any question, you can say in a comment, and probably I'm gonna make another video if you have enough question how to choose your car. This is what I use. In conclusion, petrol car, if you can, manual gearbox. If you don't, make sure you choose a very good automatic gearbox that doesn't have problem from the factory or specifically on your car. Avoid GDI engines with direct injections. Avoid, like I said, turbocharging or supercharging, obviously, because you're not gonna find a cheap car those things anyway. The rear suspension should be as simple as possible. The front one is gonna be pretty much a McPherson strut. You're not gonna have some AA arm suspensions in those cars. It's gonna be like a McPherson, like I said, McPherson suspension. Here it's independent multi suspension. That's gonna be some trouble. Like I say, a mono suspension with a steel beam, that's pretty well a safe bet. The tires, look at this. You have multiple tires on this one. This one I think is the most used bet in a car. Use it in every car, and choose the car that you can see it pretty much in your area. You can go ask your friends what car they have and how much they pay for them, and if something goes wrong with them. But keep in mind, you could have some real bad luck, so you have to prepare for yourself in case something goes wrong with your purchase. Go to the junkyards, see what cars they have there, so you can find easy parts. And if you follow these steps, you should be fine. And like I say, check exactly what you have in your market, because it might not be a good buy for you. A Toyota or a Honda, or I see a lot of people, especially in Europe, recommend Volkswagen, Skoda or Seat, and in my opinion, I think those cars are not that good buys. I mean, I prefer to go with something like I say, like a Kia or a Hyundai from this era, something that doesn't have a lot of problems. And obviously, if you go for these cars, like I say, avoid turbochargers, avoid as much possible to have a car with many options also, but many things that can promise you a better fuel economy, because in reality it's not going to be much difference between from fuel economy standpoint from a turbocharging and a natural aspirated engine, but it's going to be a big difference if something goes wrong with them. So yeah, if you have any question, leave a comment, I'm going to answer it, and see you in the next video.